The alien market, the night was heavy with smoke and strange lights, and the alien market was alive with noise. Tall cages stood in rows, filled with creatures from different worlds. Merchants shouted, buyers argued, and guards walked with long weapons in their hands. The smell of metal, sweat, and fear hung in the air. Inside one of the cages, near the corner, sat a girl. Her skin glowed faintly under the cold lights, but her body was thin and weak. She had no clothes, only dirt and bruises covering her. Other slaves at least wore rags, but she was abandoned like she was not even worth cloth. The merchants laughed every time someone looked at her. No one will buy that one alien guard said. His voice was sharp like broken glass. She is useless, too weak. Not even worth the food we gave her. Buyers passed her cage, not even stopping. Some shook their heads, some chuckled. To them, she was nothing. A failed product. A mistake. She curled into herself, hugging her knees, trying to disappear in the shadows. Her eyes, large and tired, looked down at the dirty floor, then a sound cut through the market, a slow, heavy step. A man entered the place, different from the rest. His clothes were simple, his boots covered with dust from travel, but his eyes were sharp and steady. He was human. Few humans ever came here. The merchants quickly turned their attention to him. Humans had a reputation. Sometimes they bought slaves to train, sometimes to save. No one really understood their kind. The human walked past cages without speaking. His face showed no interest, but his eyes studied everything. When he reached the corner cage, he stopped. The girl felt his gaze on her, and her heart froze. She did not raise her head at first. She thought he would laugh, or spit like others. But silence stretched. Finally, she looked up. The human was not laughing. He was not disgust. He was just watching her. His eyes were calm but filled with something she had not seen before. Not pity, not desire. Something else. The merchant rushed to his side, eager to sell. This one. Worthless. I will throw her in for free if you buy another. Too weak to work, too broken to serve. No one wants her. The human's hand brushed against the iron bars. The girl flinched, pulling back as if expecting a strike. But the man did not hit. He only leaned closer, his voice low, almost a whisper. How long has she been here? The merchant laughed. Too long. She should have died already. But she clings to life. Strange little thing. Maybe stubbornness is the only thing she has left. The human stayed quiet for a moment. Around them, the noise of the market went on, but between the girl and him, it felt like silence. She could hear her own heartbeat. For the first time, someone was looking at her as if she was more than nothing. Her lips parted, dry and trembling. No words came out, only a faint breath. Still, her eyes begged the question she did not dare to speak. Why are you looking at me? The merchant shrugged and turned away, sure the human would not waste money on such trash. But the human's hand lifted, slow and certain. I'll take her, he said. The laughter that followed was loud and cruel. Buyers, guards, even the merchants shook their heads. A human paying for her. Madness. The girl froze. She thought she misheard. No one ever wanted her. No one. Yet the human's voice had been clear, steady like stone, and for the first time in her life, a small spark lit inside her chest, a spark of something dangerous, something she had never felt before, hope. A fragile bundle. The night air outside the alien market was cold and sharp. The human stepped through the gates, carrying the girl wrapped in his jacket. Behind them, the noise of the market grew faint, replaced by the quiet hum of distant machines and the whispers of those still watching. The girl's body was so light in his arms, almost weightless, yet he held her as if she were the most fragile thing in the galaxy. Her skin was cold, her breathing shallow, but she clung to his jacket with trembling fingers. she could not understand what was happening. All her life inside the cages, she had been nothing but a forgotten thing. Now she was being carried as if she mattered. Every step he took made the world feel more unreal. "Put me down," she whispered, her voice thin and hoarse. The human glanced at her. "You can't walk." "Not yet." Her lips quivered. I don't want to be a burden." His grip only tightened slightly, steady and sure. "You're not." The word struck her harder than the cold wind. She lowered her head against his chest, confused by the calm strength in his voice. Why would anyone care if she was a burden or not? As they moved through the narrow streets, some aliens stopped to stare. Whispers followed them. "Why is he carrying that one? Humans are strange. He'll regret it by morning." The girl heard every cruel word. Her heart sank again, but each time she wanted to let go, she felt his steady arms holding her. He didn't slow down. He didn't turn back. They reached a small transport dock, where an old hovercraft stood waiting. Its paint was chipped, its engines groaning, but it was enough. The human stepped inside, laying her gently on a bench. The warmth of the craft was shocking after the cold streets. She pulled the jacket tighter around her, her eyes darting nervously. She expected him to finally reveal the truth, that he had bought her for some hidden purpose, like all the others before, but instead, he sat across from her, checking a small data pad. He didn't even look at her body, didn't demand anything. He simply said, "You need food. And rest." Her eyes widened. She whispered, almost to herself, "Why do you keep saying things no one else ever says?" The human looked up, his gaze steady. "Because they're true." Her throat tightened, and she felt tears sliding down her cheeks. She turned her face away quickly, ashamed of showing weakness. But he didn't mock her. He didn't even reach out. He just let her cry in peace. For the first time, the tears felt different. They weren't from pain, hunger, or fear. They were from something new, something that frightened her even more. Kindness. The hovercraft rumbled as it lifted off the ground. The city lights grew smaller beneath them, fading into the shadows of night. The girl curled on the bench, still wrapped in his jacket, watching him with cautious eyes. "Who are you?" she finally asked. He leaned back in the chair, his voice low. "No one important. Just someone passing through." But she didn't believe him. No one, passing through, would buy the worthless girl in the corner cage. No one would risk being mocked or scorned just to save her. She whispered again, softer this time, "Why me?" The human didn't answer right away. His eyes looked out the window at the endless dark sky. Finally, he said, "Because sometimes, the ones everyone throws away are the ones worth saving the most." Her breath caught in her throat. She pulled the jacket tighter, her body shaking with silent sobs. For the first time in her life, she wasn't just a forgotten thing. She was a fragile bundle in someone's care, and she didn't know if she should be afraid of the hope rising inside her, or embrace it. The journey away, the hovercraft rattled through the night sky, its old engines humming like a tired animal. Inside, the girl sat curled on the bench, wrapped in the human's jacket. Her wide eyes never left him. He sat across from her, calm, silent, checking the stars beyond the window as if the whole world outside meant nothing. For the first time, she wasn't locked in a cage. She wasn't on display for cruel buyers. But freedom felt unreal, almost like a dream she would wake from any moment. Her body trembled, not from cold, but from fear of what might come next. "Where are you taking me?" she asked in a shaky voice. The human didn't look at her right away. His gaze stayed on the dark horizon. "Away from that place. Somewhere safe." Her chest tightened. Safe? The word felt strange on her tongue. She had never known what that meant. Her hands gripped the jacket tighter, afraid it might vanish if she loosened her hold, but even as she sat there, unease grew in her heart. The market was cruel, but at least it was known. The unknown ahead frightened her. What if he abandoned her once they were far enough? What if he had bought her for some secret reason he hadn't revealed? Her eyes narrowed, suspicious and desperate. Why would you waste your money on me? Everyone said I was nothing. Finally, the human's gaze turned to her. His eyes were calm, steady, carrying no lies. Everyone was wrong. She froze, her lips parting. No one had ever spoken of her like that. The words lodged in her heart, impossible to push away. The hovercraft dipped low, weaving between cliffs and shadows. Lights flickered in the distance, alien patrol ships scanning the skies. The human moved quickly, his hands steady on the controls. He turned the craft sharply into a canyon, hiding from view. The girl gasped, clutching the bench. Are they following us? Yes, he said simply, her pulse raced. Because of me. The human's jaw tightened. Because they don't like what I did. Some things aren't forgiven in places like this. She lowered her head, shame pressing heavy on her chest. I'll cause you trouble. You should have left me. But his voice cut through her despair, firm and sharp. I don't leave people to die. Silence filled the cabin after that, heavy but not cruel. The girl's tears blurred her vision, yet she couldn't look away from him. His words were like iron, unshaken even by danger. The hovercraft finally slowed near a hidden outpost built into the cliffs. Its entrance was small, invisible from above. The human landed smoothly and turned off the engines. The craft groaned, falling quiet. He stood and offered his hand. Come. The girl stared at his hand. Her body wanted to move, but her mind screamed not to trust. Yet something deeper pushed her forward. Slowly, she placed her fragile fingers in his palm. His grip was firm, not crushing, guiding her out of the craft. The outpost smelled of dust and oil. Broken equipment and dim lights lined the narrow hallway. It wasn't beautiful, but it was shelter. The human led her inside, letting her walk at her own pace. She whispered, almost too soft to hear, "You'll regret this." He glanced at her, his expression unreadable. Maybe. But I'd regret leaving you more. The words sank into her chest like fire. She stumbled, her knees weak, but he steadied her without hesitation. As they moved deeper into the outpost, the girl's thoughts spun. For the first time, someone carried her away, not as property, not as trash, but as someone worth saving. And in the shadows outside, far above the cliffs, unseen eyes tracked their every step. First meal, first tears. The outpost was quiet, its walls humming faintly with old power lines. The human guided the girl into a small room where a metal table and 2 chairs waited. A dusty storage unit stood in the corner. It wasn't much, but compared to the cages of the alien market, it felt like another world. The girl sat slowly on the chair, her thin legs trembling. She clutched the jacket around her, afraid it would slip away. Her wide eyes followed the human as he moved to the storage unit. He opened it, pulling out small packets and a jug of water. The smell hit her first, warm, savory, real. Her stomach twisted painfully, reminding her she had not eaten properly in weeks. In the market, scraps were thrown at her like she was an animal, and even then she had to fight with others for them. Now the sight of clean food made her chest ache. The human placed a steaming bowl in front of her. A simple meal, thick soup with bits of bread floating inside. The warmth rose into her face, making her dizzy. Eat, he said softly. Her fingers hovered above the bowl but stopped. Her throat tightened. Is this for me? He nodded once. Yes. The tears came before she could stop them. They slid down her cheeks, hot and fast, dripping onto the jacket. Her hands shook as she grabbed the spoon. She took one small bite, then another, and then she could not stop. The food burned her tongue, but she didn't care. She ate with desperate speed, like the bowl might vanish if she slowed down. The human watched quietly. He didn't rush her. He didn't laugh at the way she shoved the spoon into her mouth. He only refilled her bowl when she finished, placing it gently before her. Halfway through the second bowl, she dropped the spoon and covered her face. Her shoulders shook with quiet sobs. The human said nothing. He waited. When she finally spoke, her voice was muffled and Ken. Why are you doing this? No one has ever given me food without asking something first. The human leaned back in his chair, his expression calm but firm. Because you're starving. And because I can. She peeked at him through her fingers. His words were so simple, but they carried weight she couldn't understand. People always wanted something: obedience, service, pain. But this man gave without demand. It scared her more than cruelty ever had. Her sobs slowed, replaced by shaky breaths. She wiped her eyes with the jacket sleeve, ashamed. I must look pathetic to you. The human shook his head. No. You look alive. That's enough. Her chest tightened again. She didn't know how to answer. She only lowered her gaze, whispering, "Thank you." The silence stretched between them, but it wasn't heavy. It felt warm. Almost safe, but outside the outpost, danger was moving. Far above, hidden in the night sky, a sleek alien ship hovered. Its scanners traced the canyon, locking onto the outpost below. Inside, hunters whispered among themselves. The human took her. The worthless one. Not worthless. She belongs to someone important. If she lives, she could ruin everything. Then we'll make sure she doesn't. Inside the small room, the girl finished her meal, her stomach full for the first time in years. She didn't know what hunted them outside. She didn't know that her life carried secrets worth killing for. All she knew was that for one fragile night, someone had given her food, kindness, and hope, and that hope, though small, burned brighter than any hunger she had ever known. The hunter's trail, the outpost was silent, but silence did not mean safety. The girl lay curled on a cot, the human's jacket wrapped tightly around her, her breath finally steady after her first real meal. For the first time in years, her body rested. But outside, danger was already moving closer. Far above the cliffs, an alien ship drifted through the night sky. Its hull gleamed black, its engines almost soundless. Inside, hunters stood around a glowing screen. The screen displayed the outpost, its weak energy signature pulsing like a heartbeat. The human thinks he can hide her here, one of the hunters sneered. His teeth were sharp, his eyes cold. He doesn't know who she really is. Another leaned closer to the screen. If word spreads, her bloodline could challenge the council. She must disappear forever. The leader's voice was low and certain. Track the human. Kill him if he resists. And bring back proof that she is gone. Back inside the outpost, the human moved quietly through the hallways. He checked the doors, locked the gates, and adjusted old sensors to warn him of movement. Every action was calm, practiced, like a soldier who had done this many times before. The girl stirred on the cot. Her eyes opened slowly, still heavy with sleep. She saw him moving like a shadow, checking everything with sharp focus. You don't rest? She whispered that he looked at her, his expression unreadable. Not when someone might be following. Her heart skipped. They'll come for me, won't they? Yes. His answer was blunt, without comfort. But then he added, that's why I'm here. She hugged the jacket tighter, confusion burning inside her. Why? Why protect me when you don't even know me? The human's gaze softened just slightly. I don't need to know you to see you deserve a chance. Her lips trembled, but no words came. Deep inside, she felt a memory, shouts. Betrayal, a cold hand shoving her into a cage. She had been told she was worthless so many times that she almost believed it. But the way he spoke made her wonder if all those voices had been lies. A sharp beep broke the silence. The old sensor on the wall lit up red. The human's eyes narrowed. He moved to the small window, scanning the cliffs outside. What is it? She asked, fear rising in her throat. Hunters, he said calmly. The word made her freeze. Her whole body went cold. She knew that name. Hunters never stopped until they finished their task. Her voice cracked. They'll kill you for helping me. Let them try, he said, his tone steady as steel. He opened a hidden crate under the table. Inside lay a weapon, simple, human-made, but deadly. He checked its charge and set it on the table. His movements were smooth, confident, like someone who had survived worse. The girl's heart raced. You can't fight them all. He gave her a faint smile, one that didn't reach his eyes. I don't need to fight them all. Just enough to make them think twice. Tears pricked her eyes. She didn't understand him. He had bought her for a coin, covered her with his jacket, fed her, and now he was ready to fight for her. All for someone the galaxy had already thrown away. Outside, the hunter's ship descended silently, its shadow stretching across the canyon walls. Inside, the girl whispered a prayer she hadn't spoken in years, and the human stood by the door, weapon in hand, ready to face whatever came. The hunters thought they were chasing a fragile runaway. But they were walking into the path of a man who had nothing to lose. Secrets in the dark. The outpost was drowning in silence, broken only by the faint hum of old machinery. The girl sat on the cot, her arms wrapped around herself, listening to the human's steady footsteps as he moved near the door. Every sound outside made her heart jump. Finally, she couldn't hold her fear anymore. They're coming for me, aren't they? The human nodded once. Yes. His voice was low but calm, like a soldier waiting for battle. Her throat tightened. Then I should leave. If I run far enough, maybe they'll stop hunting you. He turned, his eyes sharp. That's not how hunters work. If they marked you, they won't stop until they see you dead. Running alone would only make it easier for them. The word struck her like a blade. Her hands trembled. She had always known she was cursed, but hearing it in his steady tone made it real. She swallowed hard, her voice breaking. Do you know why they want me gone? The human studied her quietly, waiting. Something inside her cracked under the weight of his silence. She had kept the truth buried for so long, but the pressure now was unbearable. My family, she whispered, her voice trembling. I wasn't born a slave. I was born into a house of power. My mother was of the council, my father a leader. But there was betrayal. One night, soldiers came. They burned our home. They killed everyone. And me. She paused, her breath shaking. They spared me only to use me as proof of their victory. But when I grew older, they realized I was a threat. So they threw me into the markets, where no one would care if I disappeared. The human listened without interrupting. His face stayed unreadable, but his eyes never wavered from hers. Her tears spilled as she whispered, I am the last of my bloodline. If I live, the council's lies could fall apart. That's why they want me gone. The silence that followed was heavy, essaying against the walls. She expected him to recoil, to regret saving her, to push her away like all the others, but instead, he moved closer. He crouched so his eyes were level with hers. So you're not worthless, he said firmly. You're dangerous to them. That's why they fear you. She blinked, stunned. Fear me? He nodded. Anyone they try so hard to erase must matter more than they admit. Her chest tightened. She wanted to believe him, but doubt gnawed at her. And what about you? Don't you fear me too? His expression softened, just slightly. No. I don't fear the broken. I stand with them. Her lips trembled. No one had ever spoken to her like that. The words lit a fire deep inside her, something she thought had died long ago, but before she could answer, the outpost lights flickered. A sharp alarm buzzed, the sensors had been triggered. The human stood quickly, weapon in hand. They're here. Her pulse raced. She stumbled to her feet, clutching his jacket tighter around her body. What if they take me? He glanced at her, his voice steady as stone. They won't. The door rattled as heavy footsteps echoed outside. Shadows moved across the small window. The hunters had arrived, the girl pressed against the wall, her heart pounding like thunder. The human stood in the doorway, his figure a barrier between her and the dark shapes closing in. That moment, she understood something. She was no longer just a fragile burden. She was a secret worth killing for. And he was ready to fight for that secret. The hunters thought they came for easy prey. But what waited in the dark was far more dangerous, a man who refused to let go. The outpost walls trembled as heavy boots pounded outside. The girl clung to the shadows, her hands shaking as she held the jacket tighter around herself. The human stood tall near the door, weapon raised, his body tense but calm, like a soldier ready for war. The hunters' voices echoed through the canyon. Open the door, human. Hand her over, and we might let you live. The human's reply was sharp and cold. You'll have to take her from me. The silence that followed was broken by a crash. The door burst inward as a squad of armored hunters stormed inside. Their blades glowed with cruel light, their eyes fixed on the girl cowering in the corner, but the human moved first. His weapon barked with bright flashes, the sound deafening in the small room. 2 hunters fell instantly, their armor sparking. The others spread out, circling him. The girl gasped, her heart hammering in her chest. She wanted to scream, to run, but her legs wouldn't move. She had seen violence before, but never like this, never for her. One hunter lunged at the human with a blade. He sidestepped, striking hard with the butt of his weapon, cracking the alien's mask. Another came from behind, but the human ducked low, sweeping his leg out and knocking the creature down. Every move he made was precise, sharp, filled with experience. He wasn't fighting like a man desperate to survive, he was fighting like someone who had survived battles far worse, but there were too many. The hunters pressed closer, their snarls filling the air. One blade cut across the human's arm, leaving a burning wound. Blood dripped down, but he didn't flinch. He pushed forward, firing again, dropping another attacker. The girl's eyes filled with tears. She whispered, "Stop, they'll kill you." The human didn't turn to her, didn't falter. His voice was steady as he fought. "They'll kill you if I stop." The hunt. Heirs grew frustrated. One of them shouted, "He's only human. Break him." They surged together, forcing him back. He blocked one strike, dodged another, but a heavy fist slammed into his chest, throwing him against the wall. His weapon skittered across the floor. The girl cried out, rushing forward instinctively, but the human raised a hand to stop her. His eyes, even through the pain, burned with iron resolve. "Stay back." The hunters closed in, confident now. But the human rose again, his fists clenched. Blood stained his shirt, his breath was rough, but he stood tall. He grabbed a broken pipe from the floor and swung it with brutal force, striking the nearest hunter's helmet. Sparks flew, the room became chaos, shouts, steel, blood. The girl pressed against the wall, her heart breaking as she watched him take blows no man should stand from. But every time he fell, he rose again, like a storm refusing to end. Finally, silence fell. The last hunter collapsed to the floor, armor cracked, weapon broken. The room stank of smoke and blood. The human leaned against the wall, his chest heaving, his face pale. He wiped blood from his brow and looked at the girl, her tears streamed freely. She dropped to her knees beside him, clutching his sleeve. Why do you keep standing for me? I'm nothing." His voice, though weak, cut through her despair. "You're not nothing. You're alive. And that's worth fighting for." The words shattered the last wall inside her. She sobbed against his arm, not from fear, but from the unbearable weight of kindness she didn't think existed. Outside, the night was quiet again. The hunters lay defeated, but more would surely come. Inside, the girl realized something terrifying and beautiful. This man had bled for her, killed for her, and would do it again, and for the first time in her life, she believed she was worth it. The outpost was filled with the heavy smell of smoke and blood. The floor was littered with broken weapons and the bodies of the hunters. The girl knelt beside the human, her trembling hands clutching his sleeve. His face was pale, his shirt torn and stained red, but his eyes were still steady, still alive. "You're hurt," she whispered, her voice breaking. He gave a small nod. "I've been hurt before." She shook her head, tears spilling down her cheeks. "You fought for me. You bled for me. And for what? I'm not worth this." His gaze sharpened. Even in his pain, his words carried weight. "Don't say that again. You're worth more than they ever told you." Her chest tightened until she couldn't breathe. She had spent years hearing she was worthless, a mistake, a shadow no one wanted. And now this human, bleeding and broken, said the opposite with such certainty that she didn't know how to doubt him anymore. The silence stretched between them until the human slowly pushed himself up. He staggered but didn't fall. He retrieved his weapon, checking its charge. "They'll send more," he said. This was only the first wave. The girl's heart dropped. "Then what will you do?" He looked at her, his voice calm. "What I always do. Keep moving." She blinked, confused. "And, what about me?" His eyes softened. "That's up to you." She froze. "What?" "You don't belong in a cage anymore. You don't belong to me, or to anyone. You can leave now if you want. Go where no one can find you. Start over." Her breath caught in her throat. Freedom. The word echoed in her mind, unreal and terrifying. For so long, she had dreamed of being free, yet now that it was offered, she was afraid. Afraid of being alone again. Afraid that without him, the world would swallow her whole. Her lips trembled. "You would just let me go. After all this?" He nodded. "Yes. Because your life belongs to you, not me." The words pierced deeper than any blade. He wasn't her owner. He wasn't her master. He was giving her something no one had ever given before, choice. The girl shook her head, tears spilling faster. "If I leave, I'll die. If I stay, you'll keep bleeding for me. Either way, it's wrong." He stepped closer, his hand resting lightly on her shoulder. "Sometimes living means choosing the harder path. But it has to be your choice." Her body trembled. For a long moment, she stared at the floor, her mind a storm. Freedom, or the man who had saved her. Finally, she lifted her head. Her voice was soft but firm. "Then I choose to stay. Not because I'm trapped. Not because I'm afraid. But because I don't want to walk this galaxy alone anymore." The human's eyes searched hers, and then, for the first time since she had met him, a faint smile touched his lips. "Then we move forward together," he said. Relief and fear crashed together inside her chest. She knew the hunters would come again. She knew the danger was not over. But for once, she had chosen her path. She was not just a fragile bundle carried in his arms, she was a person who decided her own fate, and she decided to face that fate at his side. Outside, the canyon winds howled, carrying the scent of death and fire. But inside the outpost, something stronger had been born, a choice, freely made, binding them together in a way chains never could. A new beginning. The dawn crept over the cliffs, painting the canyon walls in pale gold. Smoke still lingered from the night's battle, drifting out of the broken doorway of the outpost. The girl stood there, wrapped in a human's jacket, staring at the rising sun. It was the first sunrise she had seen outside of a cage. Behind her, the human gathered supplies into a worn pack. His movements were steady despite the wounds that lined his arms and chest. He had wrapped them with strips of cloth, but blood still seeped through. He ignored the pain as if it were nothing more than another weight to carry. The girl turned, her eyes filled with worry. You shouldn't move. You need rest. He glanced at her, calm as always. Rest will come later. Right now, we need to leave. Her heart clenched. More hunters. He nodded once. They know you're alive now. Word will spread. This place is no longer safe. The girl hugged the jacket tighter. For so long, she had been afraid of the future, afraid of every step outside her cage. Now, she was afraid of something else, losing him. As he adjusted the pack, she stepped forward. Her voice was quiet but firm. Wherever you go, I'll go too. He studied her for a long moment. His eyes were steady, but softer than before. It won't be easy. The galaxy is cruel. You'll be hunted, judged, hated. Walking beside me means never being safe. Her lips trembled, but she did not look away. I've never been safe. But for the first time, I feel alive. And I'd rather live one day beside you than a lifetime in a cage. For a moment, silence hung between them. Then the faintest smile touched his face. Then let's walk together. They stepped out of the outpost into the cool morning air. The wind tugged at her hair, the ground rough beneath her bare feet, but each step felt like a promise. As they moved through the canyon, whispers spread behind them. Traders who had seen the market spoke in hushed voices. The worthless slave, she's alive. A human carried her away. Why would he risk everything for her? Rumors grew like wildfire. Some mocked the human, calling him a fool. Others wondered if the girl was more than she seemed. And in the shadows of the galaxy, powerful figures stirred, unease growing in their hearts, but for the girl, none of that mattered now. She glanced at the human walking beside her, his tall figure steady, his steps unshaken. For the first time in her life, she wasn't being dragged. She wasn't being sold. She wasn't being hidden. She was walking forward by choice. Her voice broke the silence, soft but filled with something new, courage. What should I call you? The human glanced at her, then looked ahead at the rising sun. Call me whatever you wish. Names don't matter as much as actions. She thought for a moment, then whispered, then I'll call you Hope. Because that's what you gave me. His eyes softened, but he said nothing. Still, the silence between them felt warmer than any words. The canyon opened before them, vast and endless, a path into the unknown. Danger waited. The hunters would return. But so would new chances, new choices, and maybe even freedom. The girl lifted her head high, her tears drying in the morning light. She had been called worthless, broken, nothing. But now, walking beside the human, she felt something she never thought possible. She felt alive, and so began a new story, not of cages and chains, but of courage, hope, and the bond between a fragile girl and the human who saw value where others saw none. The outpost walls trembled as heavy boots pounded outside. The girl clung to the shadows, her hands shaking as she held the jacket tighter around herself. The human stood tall near the door, weapon raised, his body tense but calm, like a soldier ready for war. The hunters' voices echoed through the canyon. Open the door, human. Hand her over, and we might let you live. The human's reply was sharp and cold. You'll have to take her from me. The silence that followed was broken by a crash. The door burst inward as a squad of armored hunters stormed inside. Their blades glowed with cruel light, their eyes fixed on the girl cowering in the corner, but the human moved first. His weapon barked with bright flashes, the sound deafening in the small room. 2 hunters fell instantly, their armor sparking. The others spread out, circling him. The girl gasped, her heart hammering in her chest. She wanted to scream, to run, but her legs wouldn't move. She had seen violence before, but never like this, never for her. One hunter lunged at the human with a blade. He sidestepped, striking hard with the butt of his weapon, cracking the alien's mask. Another came from behind, but the human ducked low, sweeping his leg out and knocking the creature down. Every move he made was precise, sharp, filled with experience. He wasn't fighting like a man desperate to survive, he was fighting like someone who had survived battles far worse, but there were too many. The hunters pressed closer, their snarls filling the air. One blade cut across the human's arm, leaving a burning wound. Blood dripped down, but he didn't flinch. He pushed forward, firing again, dropping another attacker. The girl's eyes filled with tears. She whispered, "Stop, they'll kill you." The human didn't turn to her, didn't falter. His voice was steady as he fought. "They'll kill you if I stop." The hunt. Heirs grew frustrated. One of them shouted, "He's only human. Break him." They surged together, forcing him back. He blocked one strike, dodged another, but a heavy fist slammed into his chest, throwing him against the wall. His weapon skittered across the floor. The girl cried out, rushing forward instinctively, but the human raised a hand to stop her. His eyes, even through the pain, burned with iron resolve. "Stay back." The hunters closed in, confident now. But the human rose again, his fists clenched. Blood stained his shirt, his breath was rough, but he stood tall. He grabbed a broken pipe from the floor and swung it with brutal force, striking the nearest hunter's helmet. Sparks flew, the room became chaos, shouts, steel, blood. The girl pressed against the wall, her heart breaking as she watched him take blows no man should stand from. But every time he fell, he rose again, like a storm refusing to end. Finally, silence fell. The last hunter collapsed to the floor, armor cracked, weapon broken. The room stank of smoke and blood. The human leaned against the wall, his chest heaving, his face pale. He wiped blood from his brow and looked at the girl, her tears streamed freely. She dropped to her knees beside him, clutching his sleeve. Why do you keep standing for me? I'm nothing." His voice, though weak, cut through her despair. "You're not nothing. You're alive. And that's worth fighting for." The words shattered the last wall inside her. She sobbed against his arm, not from fear, but from the unbearable weight of kindness she didn't think existed. Outside, the night was quiet again. The hunters lay defeated, but more would surely come. Inside, the girl realized something terrifying and beautiful. This man had bled for her, killed for her, and would do it again, and for the first time in her life, she believed she was worth it.